So the next thing we're going to do here is talk about how to isolate an object from the background and remove any negative space. The image I'll start with is the triple tomoe, this one here. I'm going to press Command plus so that we can zoom in a little bit closer to it and see it on screen. I have the layer active. It is the one that is selected. It's slightly highlighted. I'll use the move tool and drag it so that it's completely in sight. So the thing that I really want is this black circle and all the black contents. If this was a perfect square or rectangle, in other words, this white border, I would be able to use our rectangular marquee tool, come to the corner, drag a box, and we'd be all set. Instead, I'm going to deselect that, and I'm going to come to the Elliptical Marquee tool. It'll help me draw a circle or an oval. In this case, I'm lucky because to draw a circle around this object, I actually need to be able to visualize the width and the height almost like this box that we see. In other words, I can easily draw a circle by literally going through that same process as drawing a square. And you'll see that I have my triple tomoe selected. However, it's not always going to be that easy. So I'm going to press Command D, I'm going to deselect that, and we're going to look at the other way to do it. If I can eyeball where the center of this object is, I can then click and start to drag outward. And if I hold down Shift and Option, the circle will stay centered from that point, and I can grab everything. Now my circle is not perfect, so if you have a free finger, you can actually hold the space bar. Now the size of the circle isn't changing. I'm going to try to center it around the object. I'll let go of the space bar, and then I'm going to come in ever so slightly. I'll let go. My circle is selected. It's not the circle that I want to get rid of. It's the area outside of it. See that? That's not the thing I want to get rid of. So instead, I'm going to come up to the menu bar, choose Select Inverse. And although it doesn't look very different here, if I back out, you'll see we have dotted lines all the way out here. It's the negative space around the symbol. When I press Delete, everything except my symbol goes away. I'm going to press Command D to deselect. Let's zoom in one more time. The thing to remember is that for this symbol, the white space should not be part of it. It should be the black circle and these three comma-like shapes. The easiest way to get rid of this white space will be to come down further to the Magic Wand tool. I'm going to make sure I'm still on the same layer. I'm going to click on the white space, and because it's all one continuous area, I can click Delete. I can press Command D to get rid of my selection. And if I move this object around, I'm pressing Command minus. You can see that it is isolated. I do, however, have something over here. So very easily, come back, rectangular marquee tool, drag a box around that, press Delete, Command D, deselect. And now I have my one symbol all set, ready to go. So with the elliptical marquee tool and the magic wand tool, that's one way you can make a selection to isolate the positive space and remove the negative space of your object. Let's now look at a slightly more complicated object and a slightly more sophisticated way to make a selection. I'm going to zoom in, and we're looking at this temple here. The good thing about this image is that we have a lot of contrast between the object and the background. So what we're going to use is what can be one of the easiest tools to use. We have three items that are called lasso tools. We have one that's good for smooth shapes, one for angular shapes, and then one that's called the magnetic lasso tool that does a lot of the work for you. I'm going to switch to the magnetic lasso tool. And what I'm going to be doing is looking at the very tip of that arrow that's floating above the symbol for the cursor. And I'll start right over here at the top of this arc. As soon as I click, it's going to try to detect the sensitivity, the contrast between the light and dark boundaries. So if you notice while I'm dragging, it's actually adding little dots, little points along the way saying, I think this is where you want me to mark a point. I can also add a point like that along the way to make sure that it's seeing everything that I'm seeing. I'll continue around the perimeter of the object. In areas like this, I might actually click to let it know where I'm seeing the edge of the temple versus that reflection. And our selection of the outline of the object is complete. It's important that you look carefully. We have two areas here that we actually need to remove from our selection because they're actually negative space. So I'll go ahead and switch over to the subtract from selection tool, this third option on the list. And you can even see a little prompt comes up. While I'm still in this magnetic lasso tool, I will come through here and select this. I'll come through here. I'll select this. And remember, we have the positive space selected. I'm going to go to select and choose inverse. Press delete. Press Command D to get rid of my selection. And we now have the shrine complete. Moving on to our third option, I'm going to come to the Omamori Amulet. And this is really the most important thing that I want. So if I look at this layer, one thing I can do right away, and this is a little bit of review, I can use something like the rectangular selection tool and grab this area, hit delete, Command D to deselect, use the move tool. And maybe what I'll do is come around this thing in a very simple way and start to delete some of these bigger areas that I know are unnecessary. Like so. Command D, deselect. I'll press Command plus to zoom in. Now, I did show you the magnetic lasso tool previously. This time I'll take you to the regular lasso tool. We'll start off with something like this. And what my suggestion might be is to start outside of the boundary, trace a portion of the object. Because it's so big and so complicated, that might be hard to do with the mouse. Command D to deselect. Trace small portions. Now, I just made a selection here. Let's zoom in closer and take a look at it. It could be better. So what I'm going to do is over here in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to choose the Add to Selection option. And I'll come right back in to choose this area. And that's better. That's also a way that I might grab a little bit of a selection, a little bit more of a selection, and a little bit more of a selection to grab it bit by bit. Don't overwhelm yourself. Like so. Let's continue this, but let's go to the polygonal lasso tool. Instead of holding the mouse down, holding the button down and dragging, now what I'll just do is I'll click from point to point. Several clicks close together can be very comparable, very similar to a curve. And again, I'll come out here to the negative space, grab all this, and I have it all as a selection. I'll delete it. Continuing. For me, it just makes more sense to break this down into manageable areas. Add to the selection. Add to the selection. Delete. I'll get rid of my selection. And you can see how this is developing. I'm going to speed through this next part here. Again, I'll get rid of my selection. Look at the negative space. We still have an area here, here, and here that have to be removed. So there we have our third object selected, isolated, all by itself, all negative space removed. At this point, we're ready to start talking about how these things will be resized. You'll see that in the next video.